Today I'm making pierogies. So I'm using red potatoes. So I peel them and I cut them into cubes. And then I put them in a pot, add salt with water, boil them, and I'll poke them with the fork to see when they're done and mash them up after. So I'm making the pierogi dough. So we're going to have 4 cups of flour, 1 3/4 cup of warm water, 1 egg, half a teaspoon of salt, 2 tablespoons of oil. We're going to combine the water, eggs, salt, and oil together and beat them. So we're combining the water, the oil, the egg, and the salt. Now we're just going to beat it. I have a whisk. So my 4 cups of flour, I'm putting them into a bowl. We're going to combine the wet ingredients to the dry, and we're going to knead it. Now I'm going to add the wet ingredients to the flour and knead. So I wanted to show you that I did make it into a nice ball. And it says to lightly do the top with oil. So you brush it with oil. Then you set it aside for a ½ hour. So I put my potatoes down to 7 and let them boil. So they're ready. I'm going to drain them and I'm going to show you what I put in for the mix. So I transferred my potatoes from the pot into a bowl. I'm adding 2 cups of old cheddar, 1 cup of medium cheddar, and I'm also adding Katie to it. And then I'm going to mash it up together. So I added the powdered cheese. It gives it that sharp taste. I'm going to mash everything together. And then at the end, I'm going to taste it. And if I think it needs more cheese, I'm going to add more. So I mashed it up. It needs to be mashed up more, but I feel it needs more cheese. So I'm putting the medium cheese, 1 more cup. Before I get started here, I have my dough, which has been sitting aside. I have my oil. And this to spread it. I have a glass cup for the cookie cutter. In the old days, they didn't have it. They just used a glass cup. I have my flour. I have my cookie sheet, which I'm going to place the pierogies on. Parchment paper. And here is my mashed potatoes with the cheese. And before we start, the mashed potatoes have to be cooled down. I'm going to add some flour on the table. And I'm going to add my dough on the flour. I'm going to knead it a little bit more. And then I'm going to start rolling it out with my rolling pin, and then I'm going to add some flour to the rolling pin as well. See how the dough is? Good. And my sister used to just cut the dough in half and start rolling it. Dough. Now I'm taking my glass. So I cut some up so you can see them. And if you want them a little bit bigger, all I gotta do is take a rolling pin to individual and just roll them a little bigger, you know, because the dough does stretch. Here's the dough, add it back. And I'm going to put 1 scoop of potato in there, and then I'm going to pinch them. Take about a scoop, put it in, and all she did was just, like a cigarette, she said. If you never rolled a tobacco. And just to show you one pierogi, I'm not going to do them all, but that is a pierogi. That's a small one. I like mine bigger, so I'm going to be rolling the dough out just a little bit more to make them a little bit bigger. So here are my pierogies. They're all different sizes. So I made the dough a little bit bigger, made some big ones and some small ones. So now I'm adding the oil. It's important to oil these on both sides. So I marked the date on a Ziploc bag. I put them in. There's 21 pierogies in the Ziploc bag. Here's the oil. I'm just going to lightly cover everything with oil. And that's only so they don't stick and it's easier to take apart after you're done freezing them. To make it easier on myself, I left the pan and I added more oil. I'm just going to rub it around. So when the pierogies go in, they'll be covered in oil, and then I'll just have to do the other side. Instead of rolling out the whole dough, what I did was I just cutting up a little piece, put flour on it, flatten it out like that. In the rolling pin, I just do it like that, and I make it for how big I want the pierogi. I found it easier that way. Here's the dough that's left over. This dough, I could pretty much put anything in it after. I'm going to roll out some more, and then I'm going to add some apples in there, and I'm going to deep fry them, and it's going to taste good. So you can put anything in. You can put apples, strawberries, blueberries, any kind of filling you want. It doesn't have to be the pierogi filling. This dough I find is very good, easy to work with, and I like it. So I'll show you my pierogies again. Frying up some bacon. I'm going to add onions to it. In the pot, I put oil. I'm going to put it on high and let it boil. Once it starts boiling, I'm going to drop 2 or 3 pierogies in there, and then I'm going to float to the top, and I'm going to take them out and add them to the frying pan. Frozen onions, I started frying it in the bacon grease, and I added some pepper to the onions, and then I'm going to put this with the bacon. I already cut up my bacon into small pieces. Then I'm going to wash out the frying pan and put oil in here for the pierogies. I added some oil to the frying pan. I have it on 7 to heat up. If it starts to spit, turn it down. So it will hurt. Here's my water. Here's my first pierogi going in. I added the pierogies to the oil. I'm letting them cook. Oh, for about a couple of minutes on each side, and then they're ready.